Today, many students go to college with numerous questions about their faith, yearning to know if the seed planted in them as a child is both true and practical. Using the miracle on the road to Emmaus as a model, young adult ministers conversed weekly for 3 months with college students about the most pressing questions they had about the Catholic faith. As they journeyed together virtually, something amazing happened. Doubts disappeared, fears faded, and Jesus revealed that He is still alive. Hearts Burning Within Us, the latest book from Patchwork Heart Ministry, is a result of that grace-infused conversation. It is the perfect back-to-school gift for recent high school graduates and current college students. Get your copy for them today at patchworkheart.org or by calling 424-704-3278. That's 424-704-3278. Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Sowing Hope. I am Bill Snyder. It's great to be with you as always, and I want to remind you that you can always go to our website, patchworkheart.org. I want to direct your attention to a new website as well. It's patchworkheartradio.org, where you can find all of our podcasts and a bunch of other great stuff that's media related and blog related right there. So you head over to patchworkheartradio.org, and of course you can head over to our website too, and it's linked there. But check that out because it's going to be a wonderful spot for you to be able to interact with us. You can leave podcast reviews. You can interact with all of us on the Sowing Hope podcast. It has its own page where you can see all of the episodes, all 171 now, Ann, that we are on. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ann DeSantis. Ann, how are you?
Oh, great. And I'm especially excited because this is a great episode where not only do we have a colleague, right, someone who's working in ministry, but a good friend of ours. And so we're excited to invite and to welcome to the podcast, Carlos Solorzano. Carlos, welcome to Sowing Hope again, because I know you've been here before.
It's always great to be here. Thank you for having me again.
That's right. We have so much to talk about because you're doing wonderful work. And not only that, I want to let our listeners know that look out for some wonderful collaborative efforts between Patchwork Heart Ministry, HCD Talks, where that's Carlos Solorzano and also Angelica Delalana, our good friend, are in ministry, and me with the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation. We'll be doing a retreat pretty soon, so keep an eye. But why don't we start out with your story, because that's always a wonderful testimony of your faith.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm a cradle Catholic, and, really the strength of my faith has always been there in terms of my parents' influence and really encouraging my sister and I to follow the faith. I didn't realize it growing up because you just kind of live in this bubble to a certain degree, but my parents were really good at delivering the love of Christ. So it was easier for me, especially when I would hear stories of some friends of mine who had those real hellfire sort of Bible thumping Christian parents where, if you did the dishes wrong and you got a Bible quote over the head over it. So it was really a sense of rebellion just because you were tired of it. And overall, just, I originally had dreams of music and, rock and roll stardom and all that. But even when I was trying all that in my younger days, that the faith was always there to the point where it kind of kept me out of trouble. And then also sort of had me looking over my shoulder a lot in terms of what I really should do with my life. And, I've been teaching theology at the high school level this is my 25th year, actually. It's been a great year too. And, I've been involved with other church activities off and on for years. I'm married with a couple kids, and so my family's involved with church. But then, I ended up starting, the HCD ministry with Angelica about 2.5 years ago now. And really that's been the big calling besides my career and my family. And to the point where people will ask sometimes if I'm still doing music, and the answer is yes. But I actually recently just really pulled back in terms of where I perform and how often, because I wanted to devote more time to the ministry and to really focus, to be in a better place, really physically when I'm performing. Because a performance place, but there are some places where it gets let's just say it's a little too much. And I just don't want to be in that environment.
Yeah. Well, you take your ministry very seriously and your
Yes.
faith. And also, you're an author. Now, we're going to talk about that
Yes.
too, because I love your book.
Thank you.
And I can't wait for people to hear about that too.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to share, though, about your faith journey? Because I know that I think you're a deeply spiritual person. I mean, you've
Thank
shared
you.
some dreams, some thoughts that you've had with us on other podcasts, and how God has spoken to you. Anything else that you want to share about that?
I would say, I guess I had learned in my theology of the body studies how God really is the only thing that can truly satisfy us in our lives. And I've always been a very deep thinker and a deep feeler. Like, I don't just ponder these deep mysteries of the universe. I really will sit and think about what something means. And it's actually made my life very lonely because of the fact that it's you don't really meet a lot of people that are like that. And sometimes you feel kind of weird, whatever. But I always noticed that when I would go into that depth of myself regarding my faith, that was always where I really found God. It was like I didn't have to be afraid to do that. So it's one of those things where I think that's what we all fear the most, is we all have that capacity. And again, we can think about when you go that deep, what are you going to find? It's like really the mysteries that we're looking for. And that's where I would find God. And so a lot of my faith journey, it's really, there's people will ask me sometimes questions, and I'm like, I really wish I could tell you, but I can't put it into words. I just feel it, and it makes sense to me. And it allows me to trust more, because I do question everything, everything that, even if it's like your favorite basketball player, your favorite this and that, I was always that kid that asked why. And I would stop if you give me a good answer. I didn't just ask why for the sake of being annoying. So I was just, if someone could really give me, and even if I disagree with you, a good reason, I'm like, hey, that's great. I get it. And I can appreciate that. But I've always been turned off by just when people are just very superficial about everything. I'm like, no, there's so much more. Come on,
Mhm.
But I just, that's where it gets to be a very lonely life. But then I would find God in all that. So that was kind of the nice thing, at least for me. But what I love about the Catholic faith is that you have the real cerebral Catholics, you have the very artsy Catholics, you have the very, taught by your grandma Catholics, and it all works. The faith is for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. I
We
can
all come
identify.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I can identify with you so much, Carlos, because I have that same type of spirituality. You might not be able to explain it on a page. You just feel it in your gut, and you just know that the Holy Spirit is leading you in this direction. And you say, "Okay, God, I'm going to follow this, and I'm going to do this." So I definitely identify with your spirituality because I have a similar one. I always tell people that our spiritualities are as unique as our fingerprints. So
Yes.
remember that, just because you might have gravitate toward a similar spiritual, genre, maybe, I don't know if that's even a word, but
That works.
you might gravitate toward that. The church is big enough for everybody, and that's the amazing thing about the Catholic Church, is that you can have any area of faith. I mean, we got those real intellectual people like Saint Thomas Aquinas, then you've got the mystics like Saint Catherine of Siena, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got a wide range. But no, so I mean, I would love for you to talk with us a little bit about your book too, because it's an amazing walk that you took with
Oh yeah.
with the Blessed
Uh,
Mother, right?
Yes. It's called I Am His Mother. And it started out really, I have this habit of having a little piece of something that will just grab me. and then I end up for like not remembering it exactly the way it was. So there's this, you know how there's a million movies named Jesus. And there's one from 1999, and you can find the DVD on Amazon because Jeremy Sisto is the one who plays Christ. And what I love about the film is that the director took he did take some liberties creatively, but I felt that they really kept the spirit of the film. And I do know that they did show it to Pope John Paul II, and he loved it. And the director was very moved by that because, one, it's the Pope, that's the most obvious, but also he was aware of the fact that Pope John Paul II was a playwright and an actor. So he understood the fact that the Pope did understand what was going on. But there was this scene that really got to me where Mary Magdalene in the film is following Christ. Like she's like from a distance. She's not, this is all not in the gospel. And there's a scene where she's walking on the lake at night, and our Blessed Mother's sitting on the lake shore. And Mary Magdalene looks at her, and says, "You are his mother." And I think she says, "Yes, I am Jesus's mother." But for some reason, when I remembered her saying that, I thought she said, "I am his mother." And so that's where the title stuck in my head. And it's a beautiful scene because she tells Mary that he scares her. And she says, "Imagine that, a prostitute afraid of a man." And our Blessed Mother's like, "There's something about him that's different than any man." And she embraces her to the point where later in the film, she's the one that introduces her to Christ as her friend. So I saw it, and like, I loved that movie. I loved the interactions he had with her. There was a movie called Mary, Mother of Jesus that was on NBC years ago. That it was, again, the walk between her and her son. And what's interesting is, growing up Catholic and then, being Hispanic, and my mother has such a deep faith of our Blessed Mother. Her devotion to her is just, it's really beautiful. So I kind of had that heart of it there. And I don't know what came over me. One day I just started writing, and I just played around with it. And I feel really uncomfortable saying this, but there were just some things that I surprised myself when I wrote it. And I think what kind of helped me was, while I was writing it, I played a lot of Marian songs in the background. I played them. Some of them I just played over and over and over. And I would find a version on YouTube that just really got to me. And one song was, they had this, I can't remember her name, but there was this young woman who, she has a very Broadway, like sort of stage theater voice, and she's singing "Holy Is His Name," and it's beautiful because she's probably in her 20s, but you imagine this young girl, Mary, that she was, and it just kind of gave me like the sense of the joy she must have felt when she realized she had conceived Christ in her womb. And so I would just play that all through the first part of the book, which I guess I'll talk about the structure of the book right now. I got a little creative with it, where it starts and ends with John the Apostle. So John, of course, was the one who cared for her. So he's just had his revelation, which of course gives us the book of Revelation. And he finds this document that our Blessed Mother had left. It's basically a diary. He did not know she wrote it. This is after she's been assumed into heaven. So he's essentially sharing it with the world. So then the second part is from the Annunciation until the finding in the temple. And so, just kind of went, I used the gospel as a guide. I kind of used my heart as well. And what I did was, I have two children, and, one is 19, one is 15. At the time they were younger. And I think what I did was I allowed myself to really go deep into my heart as a parent. And I respect the fact that I'm not a woman. I could never know what it's like to carry a child of mine. And I respect that. I mean, I've been in the delivery room with my wife. I understand what that means, and I respect that. But I tried to go as deep as I could. And I thought, I know I'm going to hear about this one. I'll bring that up later. But so I just tried to really be as, I guess, let's use Genesis real quick, naked and not ashamed. Like, show that part of my heart to my kids. So if my kids are ever like, "Well, how much do you love me, Dad?" Read this, because this is kind of what I'm,
Yeah.
the next part, to sort of break it up, because that's where my music background comes in. You want to break things up, like writing a song, and you kind of want to vary it up. I had this idea where, imagine if you encountered Christ and he was now ascended to heaven. So who would you talk to? It would be Mary, if she was still here. So I took 3 people that had encounters with him: the rich man who walked away because he had many possessions, the woman caught in adultery, and the man born blind. And just how the encounter they had with him affected them later in life. And they wanted to, the closest they could tell him was her. So they sought her out to tell her. And so she, of course, responds to them as well, and in a very maternal way, where in some ways she gives the last instructions. And I guess the idea I had in mind, it's kind of like when a married couple's having a little bit of a difficult time, and sometimes the wife will go talk to her husband's mother because she knows that man.
Oh.
Like, okay, well, let me tell you about your husband. I know he's difficult, but here's a little piece, because I carry. I mean, you're his wife, but I carried him. I know him. So I kind of thought, okay, well, Mary would know. The Catholic Church allows us to see Christ through her eyes. So I try to sort of show that in that part.
Yeah.
The next section was really hard because it's essentially Holy Week. And I hope I can say this with a straight face. That part of the book was just, it was difficult, but it really allowed me to see her courage, because you really think about the instinct, especially when he was on the cross, the instinct that she would have had to essentially push aside because she knew what he had to do. I mean, obviously, any mother would have done whatever they could, even offering their own life to save their child. But she understood, her faith to even trust in the Father, that in the end, it's your hope will be rewarded. And what guided me emotionally at that part was, there's a Spanish song that my mother showed me years ago. It's called El Diario de María, where it's kind of like the book in a sense, where she's at the foot of the cross and she's remembering all these big parts of his life. And it's just, the song itself is in Spanish, so it's very emotional, and people have made videos to it. And the woman that the songwriter hired to sing it, she's an angel from heaven. Her voice is, it was perfect for the song. So I would just play it over and over on those parts and just try to feel what the song was sharing with me. And the artist was sort of guiding the other artists, and it was a painful and a beautiful experience. And just really allowing myself to just fall into it, really. I mean, it's hard to explain. And then, when I got to the part where, of course, we're not going to give specific things away, but obviously we know the end of the story. So you always wonder, what was it like for her to see him when he rose from the grave? And so I kind of had my little take on that, trying to use little things that we knew from the Gospels. And then, as I said earlier, John bookends both the beginning and the end. So she's now gone, and he's having another vision, and kind of notices that there's a lot of things he doesn't understand because he's hearing other languages, he's seeing other people, and he starts kind of blurting out the places of the apparitions and has no idea what he's talking about, but he just knows in his heart her work is not done.
Yeah, I love your writing style, and I love
Thank
your
you.
faith.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell the people now also how they can get it, because it's an amazing book.
Well, thank you. It's on Amazon. I Am His Mother. Carlos Solorzano, author. My brother-in-law did the cover. He's a graphic artist. It's a beautiful cover where it has a very sort of mosaic, old.
It is a gorgeous cover.
It is.
Brother-in-law. It was funny because my mother-in-law's like, "This is your sister's husband. Do a good job." It was funny. And then it's you can find it on Amazon pretty much. I mean, it's there. We're still looking at trying to find more distribution for it. Angel and I are actually working on finishing an audio version of the book. So that for people who love to listen to it instead. So it's interesting because I'm going to be John, because I'm the guy. and she loves the book, and she's, she's a mother, of course, so she's, I've heard, I've recorded her myself doing it, and like I've heard the way she sounds like a mom reading her diary. She does an amazing job with it. So that, and then we're, every now and then we're trying to go, now that things are slowly opening up, more conferences. Like I'm hoping to do it at the CMN next summer, because we all got to hook up there again and enjoy Chicago.
That's right. We had so much fun.
Yes. And then I have, for those in Arizona, that's where I live, I've been to the Marion conference in Scottsdale a few times, and unfortunately they didn't do it this year and last year. And that's where I've had a lot of success with it, and that's what I was kind of referring to earlier. So I would be there for a few days. So like I'd be at my table, and some women would buy it, and it's kind of out of curiosity. And then they'd come back to my table the next day, like, I started reading your book last night. And I started getting nervous, because some of them are like, yeah, I'm a grandmother. I had 6 kids and I have 12 grandkids, and I'm going to see if you got this right. And a lot of them were like, hey, I will say, for a guy, you got it. And my mom loved it. So to me, that was the ultimate.
Oh, that's a big thing.
Yeah. So because that was the one I was worried about. But she loved it. And so it's been real popular with moms and with those who love Our Lady. And awesome. The thing that I was very happy with is my mother had actually given it to some Protestant women, and they said they saw a picture of Mary that they never knew. So that was something, as a Catholic, always trying to, share our Blessed Mother with people. That was something I was really happy to hear.
I'm really excited for people to get your book and read it and share it.
Definitely.
So that's a great thing. Now, what about possible other books for the future? Are you working on anything else?
I am. Well, I have the Supernatural series that the part 1's already out. It's called Through Time and Eternity. It's kind of weird. It was funny. I was watching this televangelist on TV one day, and he had he said that famous thing of, we're all sinners and we all crucified Christ. I crucified Christ. It's a theological idea. And I had this weird idea one day where, what if someone had to actually go back in time and do it? Physically do it, which and the idea turned out to not, I didn't follow that idea. It ended up turning into what if the fallen angels decided to go back in time to try to stop it?
Oh, I remember you telling us this before.
Yeah, so there's that. And so that's one story. And I use a lot of angelic folklore and scripture. And the second one is sort of what would happen to the hero after that story. And then I haven't started the third one yet. It's kind of outlined, but part of it's just, I want to step away from it. And then part of it is just, I need time to just sort of, process. But actually, I'm actually really excited to do this right now, because I have yet to post this or say this publicly. But the thing I'm working on right now is Angel and I are going to together, we're working on this trilogy. And it's like, when you hear about philosophers, anyone from like Ayn Rand to Nietzsche, how they would write novels to sort of share their ideas. We're putting together this series, this 3-part thing. It's pretty much outlined, where it's like a love story / family story / people story. And it essentially it's faith, hope, and love. And it's going to have all these elements of theology of the body going through it, where you'll have one couple where it's sort of the ideal relationship, the other couple where it's going to be more of like they've gone through a lot in their lives. And a lot of times people think when they've done that they're gone too far down the wrong road, or that they cannot be redeemed. Not true. And of course, then later the influence that would have on later generations. So I'm like, I kind of will put stuff together, and then she kind of adds things. We're doing it through a Google document. So it's kind of a collaborative thing. And it's something I'm really excited about, because, I'm taking all these concepts from TOB and putting it in there. And then the good thing is that she just finished her first part of the Creighton model for NFP. We're putting it in the story. In the
oh
series.
My gosh.
We're going to put all these things and showing how it all works in the real world. So that's making it challenging to write, but it's also like, we have to do this. We have to do this.
And see, that's amazing. And I think, again, through novels too, right? Like through fiction, the truth of the faith can be dramatized.
Mm-hmm.
And when you dramatize it and you make it, I think we're seeing a lot of success with The Chosen. Like I know how
Mhm.
many people have been watching that series because it's dramatized and it's
Yes.
made to entertain. And you know, I think a lot of times we forget, and you do a great job of reminding us that Jesus and the biblical characters were emotional beings. They
Yes.
were not just, they're not just, words on a page. They actually lived lives in times, and drawing on those experiences and bringing that out into the modern day and continuing the story, writing it in a engaging, entertaining way, uh, ends up saving souls just because people stumble across this and they go, "Oh wow," just like you're mentioning, Protestants. Here they go. With the Blessed Mother. There you go. It's like
Mhm.
one of the biggest stumbling blocks. Well, here, let's write it emotionally. Let's take it
Yes.
so that you can see this in this dramatized form and realize that this is true.
And it's funny because the movie I was citing earlier, and it's funny because it's the year of Saint Joseph. Some of the scenes in that film between Jesus and Joseph are, because even after he's gone, and he actually has a conversation about him with Mary Magdalene, talking about how amazing of a father he was to him.
Mm.
It's just, and it's funny because it's like, you mentioned that they were emotional people. They were human beings.
Yeah.
They had the same feelings we have. And it's just, when we take a look at it, and the reason also why I love that particular film with Jeremy Sisto is because they make Jesus very human. Like he laughs and he starts a water fight with the apostles. So when he dies, I mean, it's certainly not as intense as the Passion of the Christ, but it's heartbreaking because you really like him. Like you see how he treats people and it makes sense. And so like at his resurrection, like John, of course, was always seen as the younger apostle. And like there's just things about like the smile he has with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And like when he's with the apostles in the upper room, like this is part towards the end. I love it where he's standing there, his hand is down. And remember, John was the one, he went to the grave and like he was convinced Jesus rose. He's just holding his hand. And like the actor they got to play John for that scene alone, it was perfect. So it's like, and of course, we're all different learners. Some of us love to read, some of us are visual. So for those visual learners, that, and like Pope John Paul II said, he goes, "Give me artists, I will save the world."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, we walk into churches and we see, like my wife's a convert. And I remember before she became Catholic, we would walk into churches because she'd go to mass with me and she would just kind of shake her head and say, "Yeah, these newer churches, they just don't get it. This is not a church, this is a theater." And so when she'd see the older churches and she's like, "Okay, this is a church." And she was saying that before she was Catholic. I mean, she understood the point of sacred art and then the music. And like when we hear the Gregorian chants and we hear like the choir pieces, like there's a gentleman out here in Tucson, Carlos Solorzano, where he's the composer for the cathedral here, and he wrote this Ave Maria himself, his own version, and it was beautiful. It was just, he does it during like the certain concerts he'll do, and he's a trained tenor, he's a trained composer, and he gives it back to God, and it's a beautiful version of Ave Maria. It's just,
Wow.
it's just, I when I was in Philadelphia and I went to the Basilica, I'm from the West Coast. I mean, we don't have churches like that out. They don't. It took me like an hour to walk from the to the altar, and I'm just looking around and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. It just took my breath away.
It really is. I actually used to do tours there. My daughters and I worked as volunteers, so I know exactly what you mean when you say it's breathtaking
Mm-hmm.
and the work that went into it. So when you come to Philadelphia, we have to go back.
Oh yeah, I want to go to mass there. I just kind of visited as a tourist, and it's funny because a long time ago, when my book was I Am His Mother was on with another publisher, it was actually stocked at the gift shop there for a while. It's just I
Mm.
haven't been able to get in
Mm.
touch with the gentleman who runs it, but it was there. I had it there, and I had it at the St. Mary Providence Retreat Center. So I've had my books in Pennsylvania. I gotta find some other places to see where they might be able to stock it. But I mean, we're definitely on top of it. That was another reason why I made some changes in my life, because I can spend more of this time trying to, network, because Angels Rosaries are just beautiful. And then we have other stuff we're working on and other things. And so, we want to, be able to get that out, to different places. And the more traveling we do, the better. Like, for example, we were not only in Chicago and saw some beautiful churches there, but when Bill mentioned Marytown and we both walked in there and our jaws hit the floor, it was just,
Yeah.
her and I still talk about that place.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
we're planning on going back. So, thank you, Bill. That was,
No,
Oh, yeah.
that was
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, well, when you live there for 18 months,
Yeah.
you're like, it's
amazing.
home. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
home. But no, this
Thank
has
you
been so
so
much
far.
fun.
This podcast has been awesome with all that you're sharing. We have to have like a part 2 because unfortunately we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
It's basically like a half hour, 40-minute podcast.
Sure.
So as we're coming to a close pretty soon, is there anything else that you want to share about what's going on with ministry?
We've been blessed because we've had 2 bishops give their public approval of it. Her regional
Praise
bishop,
God.
yes, her regional bishop in the Los Angeles, San Pedro region, and then my bishop of Tucson, which that was a blessing because he told us straight up, I do not give public endorsements. I will just say I'm okay with it, and then you can tell people in the diocese I'm okay, and they can call my office. He went ahead and did it. So I was blown away by that.
That's a big deal.
Yes. We've been contributing weekly there's this thing called the New Outlook. It's the diocesan, well, not a newspaper anymore, but periodical, which is nice. We're currently working on a number of videos for numerous parishes and schools that are going to have us do like a lesson. And I think there's a lot of TBD to tell you because I'm meeting tomorrow morning with a former student via Zoom. He's up in the Phoenix area. He's a principal at a Catholic school. It's kind of bizarre because he was one of the first class I taught. He's now a principal. I told him once, I should come in for an interview so you could actually fire me because I gave you detention when you were freshmen. But he's been talking to me about coming up to do some talks for the school. He's talking about bringing Angel in possibly too for us both to do a talk for the parents. And she actually is now the NFP person at her parish, one of the NFP instructors for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. She's creating a talk for the girls at her parish school. This other parish school in Tucson wants to bring her in. My school wants to bring her in. My wife's school is talking about bringing her in. I mean, she is going to be the NFP person on the.
That's
in the
a big deal.
Yes,
It really is. So pray for
passionate
her.
about it. And this is something that she's been like tugging at her for a couple years now. And so we're excited because in like the way she kind of worded, I'm sort of paraphrased. She goes, I want to teach women who they really are. And then I want to come in and do the theological lesson where I can tell them this is how men are supposed to see you as designed by God. Do not settle for anything less.
Beautiful. There's so much more to come. I mean,
yeah.
so I want the listeners, the audience to know that this is not like the last time you're going to hear from Carlos on Patchwork Heart Ministry, right?
No, exactly.
Or the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation, either where I'm the director.
No.
So,
Okay.
but thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you.
Now,
for having me.
as I said at the beginning, there's going to be some good news coming too with our 3 ministries. We're going to be doing
Yes.
something in 2022. And the great news is it's going to be an in-person event. So
Yes.
keep an eye. It's going to be in the Philadelphia area. We're working out all the details and, what the title's going to be and exactly where we're going to have it. But keep an eye on a couple different websites, nonatus.org, which is the St. Raymond Donatus Foundation, hcdtalks.com, and also patchworkheart.org. They're the places that you want to look for it. Thank you so
Yes.
much
Thank you.
again.
And I'm excited because 2022 will mean I have not been to Philadelphia in 5 years, and I miss going there. I used to go there for my Theology of the Body Institute courses, so I always enjoyed going to the Philadelphia area. So
And you have friends here now too. So.
Yeah, I do. I have in-laws there too. I just haven't seen them in forever, but my wife's family, her dad's side's from there. So
Oh, okay,
nice.
good.
yeah, so we can probably see about some of them coming out to the thing too. So we'll hopefully it'll-
Absolutely.
great.
Well,
Awesome.
this has been so much fun. Thank you,
Thank you.
to both of you. And until next time, from all of us here at Patchwork Art Ministry, I'm Bill Snyder. Keep beating to your Catholic heart and sowing hope into those broken hearts.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Andy Santis 2. Today, many students go to college with numerous questions about their faith, yearning to know if the seed planted in them as a child is both true and practical. Using the miracle on the road to Emmaus as a model, young adult ministers conversed weekly for 3 months with college students about the most pressing questions they had about the Catholic faith. As they journeyed together virtually, something amazing happened. Doubts disappeared, fears faded, and Jesus revealed that He is still alive. Hearts Burning Within Us, the latest book from Patchwork Heart Ministry, is a result of that grace-infused conversation. It is the perfect back-to-school gift for recent high school graduates and current college students. Get your copy for them today at patchworkheart.org or by calling 424-704-3278. That's 424-704-3278.